Okay, everybody, we're going to do a special extra episode. Some bonus content for those of you who loyally listen on a regular basis. And
What's the show called?
the show is called Nothing But Worry. And since it's a bonus extra episode, I'm going to be a little bit looser and less formal. You know who I am, and you know who's sitting beside me. And you know what the deal is. So, it is Saturday night around a little after 10 p.m. Got a little bit of a rainstorm coming down around us.
What's your state of mind currently, dude?
I went out and bought some Viva Zen Kratom. I got the double strength kind, which doesn't contain the kava. So, I'm not that hip to all the ins and outs of this stuff. So, I'm starting to feel it. And, so I figured, and Bonnie had said earlier, we ought to record another episode this weekend because we're both in the mood to talk, and might as well capture it on digital audio recording while we're at it.
And I'm not in the mood to read anything because my head's about to explode.
Yeah, but Bonnie and I are both subject to pain, skull pain induced by barometric pressure. I'm not feeling anything today. Normally, the area around my eye, on the side of my skull where I had the surgery, is sensitive, but I'm not feeling it today. And it's not because I'm doped up, but just, I don't know why. I'll have to get up in a second and have another sip of coffee. But,
Why don't you go ahead and get the coffee and walk it in there, talk about your coffee, and come back?
No, I don't want to do that. There's a bug in here. Anyway, so let's go over some. Before I ramble on, let's hear Bonnie ramble on for a second.
Oh, gee, thanks, dear.
Well, let's hear you say some opening statement.
It's been an interesting week for us. You've been reading to me a lot more, and the subject has been poetry, short poems, and it has caused a lot of self-reflection. It's the type of poetry that is very personal, almost invasive, embarrassing at moments.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it's been very good, though.
Yeah. I think yesterday on the show we mentioned I'd read some poems by Maxine Kuhlman. Didn't know she was dead. She would be 100 if she was still alive right now. For some reason, I thought she was younger than Diane Wilkowski, but
It was the Wilkowski poems that made me feel the most uncomfortable. And it wasn't because of the raw sexuality that was expressed. It was the raw neediness.
Mm-hmm.
I have never been one of those people that read the, what are they called? Bra buster? What are those?
Bodice Ripper.
Bodice rippers, those romance novels. I just found them too tawdry and seedy, and there's this element of neediness there. It's for people who can't seem to find or keep someone in their life. And as you were reading it, it was a combination of middle school girl poetry. We all knew a girl who was the type that was overly expressive about her feelings and felt like everything had to be put on paper.
Well, I didn't see her poems being like that. I thought it was more.
But that's what it reminded me of. It brought back those feelings of discomfort.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. This isn't that similar to that, but it reminded me of something I was thinking about yesterday. I have a friend that I only see maybe every 5 or 6 years. Last time I saw him was over 7 years ago. And his first wife, when they were dating, she wrote him this letter that was like sort of a description of a sexual fantasy she had about the two of them having sex.
Jesus.
And it was so just embarrassing to read because it revealed how not how tacky her
Mike?
fantasy life was. It was about them fucking in the rain on the ground next to his car, and they were getting muddy and she was getting wet, but she says it wasn't from the rain, it was from your sweat. And I just thought, this is really, and he was looking at me like, isn't this revolting? I mean, he was revolted by it. He was also amused by it because he just thought it was just.
One of the things that makes me feel uncomfortable, the guy who co-wrote Seinfeld,
Yeah.
his show, what's his name?
Larry David.
And The Office. You tried to get me to watch The Office British version, and there's an episode where someone fucks in the parking lot on the pavement.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot
And
about that.
I was like, oh my God. I mean, it's both cringeworthy for the sexual aspects, but cringeworthy because the feeling of asphalt, because everybody's fallen on asphalt at some point or another, and the way it peels away at your skin.
Yeah.
And it was just these combined elements.
Yeah, The Office, I don't think, when I first put my toe in the water, I didn't like it, and then I got to like it, but I don't think I could rewatch it now because it's got moments of genuine human emotion. It's not all just uncomfortable laughter.
How is that different from Peep Show? You really like Peep Show.
Peep Show.
And I feel it's cringeworthy in the same way.
Well, the thing about Peep Show is there is no, there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no sadness. I mean, there's no human. It's all one thing. The two guys who wrote the show also created Fresh Meat, which is about a group of freshman college students who all room together. And that has funny stuff. It has real human interaction. It has people getting to like each other and need each other. So it's a more broad spectrum of human emotion. Peep Show, though, there's no, as the people who created Seinfeld once said, no birthing, no bonding, no learning. It's like that, you know. And so anyway, and I know you haven't really given Peep Show a good shake, but it's not nearly as cringe-inducing as The Office, or
Larry David.
or Curb Your Enthusiasm, really.
Yeah.
It's just so over the top. These people are just such over the top goofball idiots.
Was the Gary Shanley show in any way that sort of discomfort level?
Well, no, you talk about the Larry Sanders show. That's the one where he plays a talk show host.
Honestly, I don't remember.
I think that's what it was. See, he had a regular mainstream network sitcom.
Describe what I'm doing.
Bonnie's head's hurting, like we said, and so she has got a mug of boiling hot tea, and she's holding it up against her face.
Trying to reduce the pressure at this point. So if I'm speaking,
I know that feeling. I've done that to myself. It feels good.
If I hadn't used so much hot water doing the dishes earlier, I would be submerged like an alligator in the bathtub right now with my nose sticking up. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. Well, the thing about the poetry this week that's been very interesting is that it really focuses your attention. I compared it to TikTok videos and other shorts, YouTube shorts. These poems that you've been reading are 1, 2 minutes, sometimes even shorter. They don't take much time, but the thing about poetry compared to the YouTube shorts, the TikTok shorts, is that it requires you to listen. There is no visual element involved. You're not getting distracted by ads on the side or someone's costume or makeup or whatever. You just close your eyes and you listen to the words.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, you have fuller access to your personal response to it. And for me, it was so evocative of all these other feelings. At one point, you're reading this one by Maxine Kumin, and she's talking about her neighbor who was sundowning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm relating to the fact that I have had to help people who are at the end of their lives. And I'm literally holding their hands. And it's the only thing that I can offer to them is this human comfort. And I'm in tears at this. Because these are people who, even their own families they live with, they call me in to help. And they're not getting what they need from the families. Because it's become taking them to the bathroom, getting them bathed, getting them fed, getting them dressed, getting them to bed, putting them in the chair. It's become this series of chores.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nobody to sit there and quietly be with the person. And I remember going in and talking to this one guy, Jim. And the first thing I would do every day when I went in to be with him, I would sit next to him and I would take his hand and I would ask him how he was doing. And I would just keep holding his hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that with Jane also. And those simple things mean so much. And as I'm listening to the poem, she is talking about this man grasping for words. And I can feel her human response to him. This pulling at my own emotions
Mm-hmm.
through what she's saying. It was very powerful.
But bringing up the reading of the poems feeds right into something that I said earlier to you that made you think we should be recording this. Because, okay, I've mentioned before, this is one of the things I wanted to bring up. I started reading a lot of poetry again recently because I've had to pare back all the extraneous things that I do because I've got to focus on just the few core things that are the most important to me, and that's the painting and the drawing, little tiny bit of writing to go along with these things, and then my keeping up my guitar playing skills and writing songs occasionally. That's the core, and then I have like basic body maintenance, like working out and all that. But anyway,
Time with your woman.
right, and spending time with my wife, very important, and maintaining contact with my daughter. You knocked your plate on the floor.
It's okay.
I just didn't want to get it stepped on. Anyway, so basically the only what you do.
I'm sorry. It's like I've lost my whiskers tonight.
Yeah.
Because my head is so swollen.
Well, anyway, I basically don't have time for a lot of reading, but I do like to read a little bit before when I lay down to go to sleep. But I've just lost all interest in reading novels, to be honest, or reading a whole book. So what I decided to do, it was just make a great big pile of books on the little stand next to my bed, and just dabble, just sample, just sort of pick one up and read a little bit of this and read a little bit of that, and so poetry's perfect for that, And anyway, what I was saying to Bonnie earlier was, I'm going through all the thousands of books we have in this house, and I'm going, yeah, get that one. And yeah, oh, I forgot I had this. Get that one too. And one of the books I picked out was a book, old book, maybe 60, 56-year-old book, called The Esquire Party Guide, or Guide to Throwing a Party. And it's illustrated by Seymour Chwast, which I've always loved his illustrations. And it's a very silly sort of book to pick out, to look at, right?
Was he part of that pen?
He was one of the founders of Pushpin Studios. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And but I was telling Bonnie, even something like that, you can learn something from, and not just learn directly, but learn indirectly, because it gives you insight into a different world, different time period, when there was more, when people had different priorities, and throwing parties was, I think, to be honest, more important for people 50, 60, even 80 years ago, back then, than it is today. And I mean old-fashioned kind of parties, where we're going to supply cocktails, and we're going to supply a buffet, and we're going to play party games, and and one of the things I thought was interesting in the book is it says, it's about when you're wrapping the party up. It says, if you have unaccompanied women in the party, make sure, if it's dark, make sure that they get to their car. Make sure that if they don't have a car, that they get into a cab, and you see them get in the cab, and then call after they've gotten home to make sure they got home okay. That's just something we don't even think about in today's society. It is really coming down outside. But anyway, that's the point, is that you can learn by dabbling and sampling in a broad variety of things. You can learn things and broaden your own, horizons, your own thoughts and ideas. What do you say?
Well, Peter was reading over the book after you pointed it out. And
Mm-hmm.
he was laughing aloud as he read some of the suggested party games. But he said that there was also a test of how many Britishisms do you know, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Do you know proper English, or is it just, are you relegated to Americanisms?
Yeah.
And I imagine that you and I would probably know a lot of British things.
It's funny because when that book was written, I think that there might have been a greater disparity between common British phrases and American phrases than there is today. I think there's much more integration today because we have access to British television
True.
so much easier today.
Very true.
And I think Americans are familiar with a lot of British shows much more than they were back then. I mean, everybody knows Doctor Who, even classic Doctor Who. And, what's some of the shows that they do? Have I Got Some News for You? And Whose Line Is It Anyway? That kind of thing? Are those some of those shows?
Also, All Creatures Great and Small was one of the
Right,
things. It's
yeah.
made a comeback.
Yeah.
And Downton Abbey apparently is big. I think it's still ongoing. I don't know. I tried a couple first season. It wasn't my thing.
And you and I just got finished watching the most recent episode of Slow Horses.
Yeah, we went through that season. And we did the entire Endeavour and Morse and...
Long time ago, we watched The Sweeney, which is the
Yes.
70s cop show. Great show.
It's got John Thaw in it.
Yeah,
It
when he
was
was
Morse.
younger. Yeah.
But
That's like Starsky and Hutch done for British television. I mean, it's just hard-drinking, hard-smoking, women-loving cops who
Smack
don't
your
play by the
women on the
rules.
ass
Yeah. Drive around in a muscle car to this big, heavy 70s soundtrack.
it's very funny.
It is great. When you know John Thaw as this sort of bookish, sort of squeamish,
Opera-loving.
Inspector
Ari-
Morse,
Yeah.
and then you see him as John Regan on The Sweeney, where he's just slapping people around and,
Tell us what you did with the woman.
yeah.
Where is she?
Haven't
Where
got
are the
time.
runs?
Haven't got time for your crap, sonny boy. Pow, pow. Oh, Lord.
You and me, babe, later.
So, look, I think that coffee's cooled down enough to drink. I'm going to go in here and get the coffee. So I'm standing up now, and I'm walking my tired old bones into the kitchen.
Yeah, I heard your knees pop.
Really? Okay, where's it at? Here it is.
Was that your hip?
Yeah, okay. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I don't normally drink coffee, but I have an emergency supply when I need to get a lot of caffeine into a smaller amount. Oh my God, my stomach is just sloshing around now. Oh Lord. Bleh.
I made comfort ramen earlier for me and Peter, and you had some.
Yeah, I was going to have a
Yeah.
veggie burger with a big slice of sweet Vidalia onion on it, but then the noodles smelled so good, I thought, well, geez, if you got any left over, I'll have some.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where I'm sauteing onions, little green onions, in the sesame oil.
Rice
Toasted.
vinegar or something, you
No,
said.
well, I start with the toasted sesame oil, and if I have mushrooms, I cut those up and saute them, and add in garlic, and then sliced cabbage because I've been using the same 4 pound head of cabbage for the last 2 weeks, and then add in the soy sauce and rice vinegar and hoisin sauce, and I just saute it and cook it down. And
Did you mention the soybeans?
oh, edamame peas, yeah, the mukimame is what they are when they
Murakami, I think, is the name of the
mukimame.
brand.
No, mukimame is one is edamame is like with the peas in the pod,
Oh, I don't know.
but the soy peas, and then after that's cooked down nicely and browned, I add in a cup and a half of water for each ramen pack we use, and boil it up for 3 minutes, and then Peter adds a little bit of the seasoning pack that comes with the ramen. I add a tiny little bit of a chili ramen pack. And it was really good.
Yeah, I got really full, and after that I was like, well, I'm gonna lay down and take a nap. So I got up in time to take my evening pills. So anyway, this coming week I'm only working 3 days, so I have a 4-day weekend next weekend. So Bonnie and I will have the luxury of going up to Atlanta and spending the whole day up there, hitting all our favorite farmers markets and going here and there. Anyway,
Peter's really excited about being away because he and Megan are going to camp out in the house and hang out with no restrictions at all.
we had sex in your bed, Mom.
Okay, there is a rule, and I've talked about this with the kids. They're not allowed to do that, and each of them responded, "Ew, gross! Why would anybody do that?"
Oh God. So anyway, when we go, we're taking my Subaru. Bonnie's going to drive, and I'm going to play DJ. So I've been collecting over the last couple of weeks a stack of CDs to bring. Now these are not the CDs I'm going to bring, but I thought that I would go through the CDs that I'm currently listening to, and some of these might make the trip and some of these might not. Today we did a crossword puzzle that mentioned there was a clue in the crossword puzzle about mining for ore, and suddenly I remembered the song "We Work the Black Seam." We Work the Black Seam on Sting's first solo record. So I got that out because I want to listen to that this coming week. It's about coal mining. The black seam is the ribbon of coal ore down in the mine. This record is so good. Anyway, I also have here Miles Davis' Big Fun album. This is a double live album recorded from 69 through 72 at various dates. It's really, really good. John McLaughlin's on here, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, Wayne Shorter. I thought Dave Liebman was on this. I guess he's not. Anyway, I've been listening to a lot of Depeche Mode lately. This is Music for the Masses. This is their 87 record. Alice in Chains' first album, which I'm not that familiar with. I need to familiarize myself with it more. I have disc 1 and disc 2 of Jerry Cantrell's solo record, Degradation Trip, which I'm trying to familiarize myself with. There's an indie band called If I Had a Hi-Fi out of Milwaukee, Minnesota, I think so. This is their album, No More Music.
Is it actually lo-fi?
No, it's not lo-fi. It's very close to what we call math rock. You know what that is?
No.
Math rock is it's music that's for nerds. It's very highly technical. What are you pushing this for me? You want me to get rid of it for you? Okay. But I got into If I Had a Hi-Fi because we used to listen to Red Letter Media a lot. And one of the guys that's their friend that they would watch movies together with is this guy named Josh Davis. And years ago, when I was into the channel and their videos, I found that he was in a band. He's the bass player, and If I Had a Hi-Fi. So I thought, well, I am interested. I want to look into this. He did an interview where he said that their music was basically as complicated as Slayer's, but it was done with a totally different mindset, totally different kinds of lyrics, and it wasn't heavy metal. It was just, it was that complicated and that, well, complicated. Anyway, so, all right, I have Stone Temple Pilots' first album, and I have Alice in Chains' Jar of Flies EP, which has the beautiful song Nutshell on it, which I absolutely love that song. If you listen to our previous episode, that's the song I was talking about that I wish I could play for my dad, but I just don't even think he'd get it. Oh, I also have here a double disc of Joe Williams,
Wow.
who was a jazz singer. This is called The Best of the Verve Years. And I got this years ago because long time ago, I saw him sing on The Tonight Show back when Johnny Carson was still the host. And I'd never heard of Joe Williams before. And I just thought, what a fabulous voice. What a gentleman and a bon vivant. And he's a tall, aristocratic looking older black guy. The kind of man who looks like he's a ladies' man who likes to dress nice. He's the kind of guy who's familiar with good wine and good food and travel, and he's just a gentleman in all respects and a beautiful voice. And my taste in jazz vocalists is sort of very iffy. They have to, and I don't even know how to describe it, but it has to be just right for me to like vocals in jazz music. Anyway, so that's just some things that might go on the trip and might not. I got the main stack I'm building up is in my room.
I did put one thing on the off list. You may not take Windham Hill.
Right.
Sedate it.
Bonnie doesn't like Windham Hill stuff.
It's just.
And plus,
It's overdone for me. I've heard it too long in my life. And it just...
it's not travel music.
No, it's not.
It's sitting at home quietly knitting.
No, not anymore. I am 30 years past that period.
That's funny because 30 years ago I wouldn't have been into that kind of thing, but I like it now.
Yeah, you and I didn't overlap on that. I was exposed to that by somebody or another. And it just... it's like, oh, please, no more.
Anyway, the funny thing about when Bonnie's driving, if I want her to drive fast, I can put in some heavy metal, and all of a sudden she starts driving fast and aggressively. Bonnie had no time for metal before she married me, and now she's gotten to where she likes a good bit of it.
Well, you're the first person I've truly loved, my dear.
That's really nice. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
You're the first person that I have truly loved too.
And it just... I don't even remember loving anybody else before you.
I
know that there was
have never...
some boy in high school I said it to.
I've said it to
You know what I'm
a
saying?
couple of people.
But it's just like hormones and this newness and... yeah.
I'll have to be honest. I never said it to a girl unless I really meant it. But I didn't know just to what extent love for a partner could be.
Yeah.
Because when I said it to those people, it meant nothing compared to what it means to me now when I say it to you or when I say it to the children, you know, because that's absolute devotion, you know.
And it's amazing how love just manifests in different ways. The other week I wrote a letter to my daughter, to the one I have loved the longest, therefore the most. Wink, wink. It's just the idea that if you were to be able to quantify love, because you've been around the longest as my oldest child, I therefore must love you the most. And the way I love her is completely different than the way I love you, you know?
My sister thinks that I'm the favorite, and
You think she's the favorite.
no, I don't think she's the favorite. I think that it's a different thing. You know, you have the oldest child, the youngest child. You have the boy. You have the girl. You have the one who's been
The squeaky wheel.
right. You have the troublemaker, which naturally gets a lot of attention. You know. I don't know if we mentioned this, but my daughter, about a week ago, my daughter sent our daughter sent Bonnie an email in which she described me as a hyperactive delinquent. My mother, years ago, when the kids were really, really little, she said, "Now don't tell them about all the bad things you've done. They'll want to do them too." No, that is exactly the opposite of the way things work, Jane.
Yeah, there was this one episode where you were out of your head on something legal, but she was the only one home when it happened. And it really left an impression on her that she would never, ever, ever do anything that would be in any way remotely like what you had done.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wouldn't smoke a joint. She wouldn't drop acid. She wouldn't do ecstasy. She won't touch anything, legal or illegal, that's mind altering in any way. She has had alcohol, but she's only been drunk once or twice, and that was
Well-
in response to a pain issue.
Well, she doesn't know, we won't tell her, that caffeine is a psychoactive chemical, just like all these other things. But, you know, if you knew me when I was 6 or 7, you'd never think, well, that kid will become an alcoholic who loves pot, you know. But that you never know what's going to happen, you know. You never know what somebody's going to turn out to be or what
You
they
know,
might.
your sobriety anniversary is coming up.
Yeah, just a few days. I'll have 22 years without a
Jesus.
drink. Yeah,
That's a long time.
I got to tell you, I've done LSD 3 times, and I just, to be honest, I never saw the point. And the one time that I was most not intoxicated, but the most taken with it, you know. This guy and I were over at his duplex,
Okay.
yeah, and we were sitting around the kitchen table, and I looked at him, and he had fleur de lis all over his face, and I turned away, and I was like, I do not want to see that. I do not want to see visual hallucinations, and because that's just not what I was into at all. And what you gonna do? Turn it back on?
Yeah.
I know it's hot in here. Yeah,
God, my head.
we turn the air off whenever it's lightning because we don't want the air conditioner to get hit by lightning. So, you know, I'm not really into stuff that makes you hallucinate or distorts reality to that extent, you know. I always liked pot because it made music really intense. But looking back on it, I just don't even see what don't know what I ever saw in booze. I just don't like. I just, you know, it makes you loose and makes you able to socialize, but outside that,
Well, for me, it diminishes pain.
really,
Yeah, it helps on nights when there's a lot of problems, and I can't cope with it in any other way.
the socializing I did when I would get drunk was always foolish socializing, saying foolish things, and looking back on it, it's just not good. I just no. Mm-mm. But anyway, I don't know, sometimes you outgrow things. Sometimes, you know, it's like
One would hope you would.
I outgrew my taste for candy. When you're a kid, you love candy. I can't stand candy now.
Now it's like a single piece.
Right,
And it's
right,
fine.
right.
And that's what I was comparing poetry to earlier.
Right.
A book is like a cake.
Yeah, you were talking about how
And-
poetry is condensed.
And
yeah.
you've got the same effect, and it's right there at that moment when you need it. And candy, sometimes after a meal, all you need is that little bit of something sweet.
And that's why I would, if I'm going to have something sweet, I would prefer to have like a piece of cake, a piece of pie,
But a
a
small
pastry.
slice, it doesn't need to be
Right, yeah.
the whole thing.
And I got to where I just don't like, I mean, a little bit of icing on cake, fine. But this
Yeah.
big glop of icing, no, I just can't stand it.
I made a blueberry crumble yesterday, 9 by 12 inch. And the first couple of pieces were nice, still warm. But by the time we got to it today, it was too sweet.
It was too sweet. I really liked it,
Because
but it was
in
too
that
sweet.
small amount, it was fine at the moment. But I don't know. We've grown up. We've grown out of these things.
God, listen to that. That's off in the distance, though.
Yeah.
Sounds like a jet going right overhead, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. There's nothing better than like a good big piece of pound cake where the crust is not crunchy, but it's just the right bite to it, you know.
And
Bonnie
they're so
makes
moist.
yeah,
Yeah.
and dense,
Yeah. Not Sarah.
not dry,
Crap.
but and years ago Bonnie started putting blueberries in the pound cake, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, you have to roll them in a mixture of sugar and cornstarch.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they don't drop down to the bottom. They stay mixed throughout.
Yeah.
Otherwise they'll just sink and you just have this layer at the bottom. But I usually put in lemon pulp with it as well.
Oh, okay.
You
know, I
go
haven't-
a little light on the vanilla, and if I have a lemon extract, I add that in too.
I haven't made pancakes or waffles in a year, maybe. Well,
I made pancakes the other week, and they were vegan, and they were good. Remember
yeah,
those?
yeah. But you didn't make them in the.
I used the skillet.
You did use the electric skillet.
No, I used the stove skillet.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Basically
like-
we only use the electric skillet for making pancakes. And that's it.
That's you. That's your purview. It's the equivalent.
I'm
to
the
your
pancake
barbecue.
maker. I'm the waffle maker in the house.
You know what I haven't made in years? French toast.
I like French toast. Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that.
Especially like it with the real maple syrup. And that's another thing. I've gotten to where I can't have syrup unless it's real maple syrup. That corn syrup shit is with maple flavoring just doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
We're vegetarians, and one of the hardest parts to changing is when you grow up, you have certain food associations. And when I grew up, you would have pancakes and waffles with bacon or sausage.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, even when I have pancakes, I want bacon or sausage. So we'll have to have like the soy stuff, and it's never quite the same.
Those little baby sausages you used to have those with pancakes, and just perfect because you dip them in the syrup a little bit, you know.
Oh, the little soy ones that we used to get from Morningstar?
Well, that too, but I'm saying when you're back when we ate meat,
Oh.
you know, the real.
That was before you and I met each other. We never had
But I grew up with like that though. You know, you'd
I
have them
don't. I
occasionally.
don't remember having sausage links.
Really, as a kid?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
No, I think Phil would occasionally get sausage in a tube and cut it out
Oh my God.
into slices.
Just thinking about it, sausage in a tube.
I
The
know.
origin of sausage is they'd pack ground up meat and spices in an intestine and then tie it off.
Well, this was those plastic ones you'd get at the grocery store at Bilo. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh my God. When I was a kid, uh, you could go to the butcher department in the grocery store and they would sell souse. If you don't know what souse it is it's all the parts of a pig that you don't normally eat, and it's all ground up and mixed together. And you look on the,
How do you cook it? How do you prepare
it's like
it?
sausage. I mean, they grind it up and push it all together. So yeah, you could cook it like a big slab of sausage.
I think in Mexican culture there is eating of tongue.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I never been able to. Nope.
Uh,
Just not gonna do it.
yeah. On the ingredients list on the package of souse, it'll say hog lips, hog.
Penis?
Sometimes but it doesn't actually say that on the thing.
Mountain oysters.
Tongue. About it, maybe 7, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, at work, a box from one of these pet supply companies came open, and it was full of dried pig ears, which they use.
chew on them,
They give them the
don't
dogs to
they?
chew on, and it was like a piece of plastic. That's how hard it was.
I remember we would have those for our pet dog growing up.
Yeah.
She was a little bitty thing.
It had a smoky smell to
It
it.
was weird.
Yeah.
Of course, this is a dog we also gave these little breath mints to chew. Because I guess you had been chewing on that crappy pig's ear and it stuck up in breath.
I told Bonnie yesterday when we went out, I saw a product come through the mail the other day I have never seen before, never heard of before. It was disposable male dog diapers. And they were for dogs who are incontinent or who are going through a phase where they mark their territory or
Everywhere.
travel or, it's just, your
The
dog
amount
is
of
peeing. Well, it's just, why even have a dog if you have to go through the trouble? That's what got us started about that conversation about the classic observation that if alien extraterrestrials came and saw you walking your dog on the street and the dog takes a shit and you pick the shit up and you clean it, the aliens would conclude the dog is the master because you're picking his shit up and dealing with it for him. Oh my God. Hey, you remember the comedian Stephen Wright?
Curly black hair.
Big bald
Hair
spot,
white.
tall, skinny guy.
Yeah.
His
vaguely.
trademark was going, thanks. Your head dry, deadpan voice like
I
that.
don't get comedians. I just.
Well, anyway, I liked
Yeah.
him because it was just joke, but very, very bizarre observations. And one of the things he said, which I thought was just so true, so insightful, was, can you imagine what the telephone would look like if your ear was nowhere near your mouth? And probably on some other planet somewhere, there's a species where the sound receptor organs are at the total opposite end of where the speech organ is at. Can you imagine what the telephone would look like that they have invented?
What was the woman's name who was on Cheers? Kirstie Alley?
Kirstie Alley, yeah.
Remember the famous SNL skit where she is an alien? She comes down. And they have big eyes with extremely large eyelashes on the boobs of the aliens. And she's speaking, but they've like covered her eyes or something, and the boobs are kind of like, blinking every once in a while.
Yeah.
And the Earthling is like, why are your, well, it's just a natural evolutionary process. Men kept looking at our boobs, so our eyes migrated to our boobs, so you'd look at us while we're talking to you.
Yeah. They have those T-shirts that say that it's like written across where the boobs are that say "My eyes are up here," and I thought it'd be so funny to be a man and wear that.
Oh, God. One of my favorite shirts I saw was Nancy Boy. And it's a picture of Nancy, the cartoon character.
Yeah.
And it just has
Oh, that's funny.
and then
Yeah.
Boy. I saw Jason, what's his name, from Seinfeld wearing it on a
Justin
movie
Alexander.
where he's playing a gay man. And he's out,
Oh, the
he
name of
runs out to play volleyball and he's wearing this t-shirt that says Nancy Boy and he's prancing around in it.
That name of that movie is something like Love, Happiness, and something or another. And it's based on a play that was a big hit on Broadway. I used to have a T-shirt that I had gotten at a thrift store,
Yeah.
and it was the U.S. Marines logo. It was a red shirt with the Marines logo in gold, and at the bottom it said, "My boyfriend is a Marine," and I just thought it was hilarious to wear that.
What kind of response did you get from
Well, I wore it to work years ago in Athens, and everybody thought it was, funny. That's Lance being funny. Well, anyway, this truck driver came in with a load, and he had never seen me before, and he saw the shirt, but he didn't see what was written at the bottom. And he said, "Oh, I like that shirt." And the guy next to me goes, "You ought to," it's something about, "You ought to read what it says at the bottom." Oh my God! I guess I just wore that shirt out.
Yeah.
One of the weird things about getting older is, you learn that clothes wear out, and see, when you're a kid, you just outgrow them.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. But when you're grown, you go through a phase where, okay, now I'm big enough that my clothes fit forever. But then you learn, no, they eventually fall apart, and my favorite shirt is gone. My favorite pair of pants that fit me so well are gone because they just turned into a rag,
I had this collection of striped sweaters, and it was cotton sweaters, and it was a large open knit, so you could wear them all seasons. And they had strong stripe on them, like 2 inches across. I had it in green, I had it in yellow, I had it in white, rather orange, and just, I loved those sweaters, and I was so disappointed when they started just coming apart after years.
Mm-hmm.
But those striped sweaters were with me forever.
Well, back in the 80s, there were still 4 or 5 independently owned men's clothing shops in downtown Athens. Classic, what we used to call haberdasheries, which doesn't mean just, traditionally it means hat shop, but there's more to it than that. There was George Dean, there was Ferguson's, there was something Frederick, there was George Gibson's.
Anyway.
What was the Frederick store?
I don't know that one.
The sign was vertical. It was, anyway.
I don't know.
Anyway, our football coach in high school was also our history teacher.
God, he was.
And he liked to buy those kinds of clothes. Anyway, we're in class one day. He said, "Oh, you guys, if you're interested, George Dean is having their annual sale right now. You can get a lot of really good stuff for cheap." So I went down there, and I got 5 beautiful short sleeve Madras shirts, and I wore them to death. I wish I had those shirts today.
The ones that were the little squares that were sewn together?
No. They look like that. It's sort of they're plaid.
Yeah.
But it's a God, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a very sort of loose pattern. It's not that repeating, It's
Okay, so it wasn't like a tartan plaid or anything like that.
no, no, no,
Yeah, I know, but I mean, was the actual fabric? Were they?
no, no, no,
Sure,
no. I
they
know what
weren't.
you're talking
Okay,
about. No,
okay.
no. But anyway, they were just beautiful, and the thing about those stores was the brands were brands you've never heard of. You know, it wasn't Izod or whatever. It was like
Yeah, we used to go to Harry's every once in a while, and they'd have things like the Villager and these boutique fashions
right,
that
right,
you just didn't get at Belk and Davidson's and Macy's.
right, exactly. And but God, I'd love to have those shirts back again today. And if anybody remembers Duckhead khakis,
Oh God!
yeah, they looked good, but they shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. They never stopped shrinking in the wash.
Every damn frat party we went to,
The boys all wore those.
all
Yeah,
had
I know.
those, and button downs, and oh God!
The factory was here in Georgia. It was in Winder. Yeah, it was in
Somewhere
Winder.
around Winder,
Yeah,
Bethlehem
yeah,
area.
yeah.
Did it become Chico's later?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We they may be out of business now because we used to get a
Chico's?
hell of a lot of mail for them. I forgot all about that because they got so much mail at the Athens post office that we had a special drop for them,
Yeah.
a special separation. God, I forgot about that. No, I think they are still in business, so the store's still there and the sign's still. I used to see it every night when I used to drive up to Duluth to go to work. But yeah, the school we went to billed itself as a prep school,
It was not.
and there were a lot of kids who, if their parents hadn't been religious nuts, they would be going to a prep school. But so they dressed that way, and the Duckhead khakis were like a de rigueur item for preps. And so I thought, well, I got to fit in with the rest of the crowd, so I got a couple pair, and they never stopped shrinking, and they would turn into high waters after a while.
I loved preppy attire.
Yeah, I did too.
It really hit big when I was in middle school, and the preppy guide and everything came out probably when I was in high school. And but in middle school we started doing. There were whales. There was pink and green combinations.
Yep.
And we had the accessories that you would change out. You would go and you would buy the watch bands and you would buy the belts, and you would change out your belt buckles, and then the belts themselves would loop through these little buckles, and you would have fish and whales and horses and seashells. That was another big one.
Mm-hmm.
And plaid was another thing, and of course the alligator everywhere.
Well, I got a story about that.
What?
Well,
Oh yes, you
okay.
have a
When
terrible story.
Izod
Horrible
first
story.
hit big, okay, it was very important that you wore a shirt with the little alligator over the left breast pocket area. And I was like, well, I got to
And
fit in.
Horns or Nikes or espadrilles for girls.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so where I went to school, it was very important that you had the Izod shirt in a variety of colors. Okay, now, Sears came out with their own version called Braggin' Dragon, and it was just like the Izod shirt, but instead of an alligator, it had a little dragon, okay? So my mother is totally ignorant of the cultural weight of these items and these symbols. So she buys me the Braggin' Dragon brand of shirts, and I got even more to tell you about this in a minute, but and buys them for me and goes, wear these. It's like a fifth the price of the Izod. I'm like, I can't wear these because I might as well be wearing a shirt that has in letters 9 inches high, I bought this at cheap-ass Sears.
Poor people.
Yeah. Well, who cares what other people think? When you're 15 years old. It's very, very important what other people think.
This is a woman who was driving Cadillacs and Lincolns and shit at the time, too.
Yeah.
She cared what people thought.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't just the shirts that were in the Brag and Dragon family of outfits. They also had pants that came with a belt. And the belt was a cheap piece of shit with the same little dragon thing sewn onto part of the belt. So, when she bought me the shirts, I would pick at the dragon and pick at it and pick at it till I got the dragon pulled off the shirt. Sometimes it made a hole, sometimes it made a mess, but I wanted the goddamn dragon off the shirt. Well, when you tried to take the dragon off the belt, it had been sewn on, so you're left with a series of holes in the shape of a dragon on the belt.
No.
I don't understand what the problem is. You get a pair of pants and a belt for like $9.
Oh my God.
Oh, Lord.
At least my mother had taste.
Yeah.
I mean, we would go to Lennox and shop. We had $500 a season. You go up, you can buy whatever you wanted. We were spoiled. We were absolutely spoiled. And there were other people at my school, in my class, that recognized that I had brand name and good stuff. And these were snobby girls.
Well,
It's like, oh, are those Anne Klein earrings? Yes, they are, as a matter of fact.
well, there was an independent department store here in Athens called Davison's. They were later bought by Macy's, and basically the store remained the same because it was high-end stuff. But anyway, I think it was after they became Macy's. But Macy's had several what they call in-house brands. So the
Charter Club?
Charter Club was owned... No, Charter Club was owned by Polo. I think.
Anyway.
Anyway, one of the brands in the men's department was called Christopher Hayes in Macy's. And the thing about those types of brands was they had the good sense not to slap the label on the outside of the shirt. It was on the inside. You see,
Yeah.
if it's a knockoff or if it's some bizarre brand, as long as it's not being advertised to the world, I didn't care. But the fucking dragon on the outside of the shirt where everybody goes, ha ha, you bought it at Sears, you know. But anyway,
There was
even the people who were snobs recognized that the in-house Macy's brands were good. And I had this purple and black, what's the word, flannel, plaid, long sleeve shirt in the Christopher Hayes brand that was absolutely beautiful. And I think my cousin coveted it so much, I think I finally gave it to him. There were some other brands. Oh, Great Plains Buffalo Company. That was one of the in-house brands, and they made jeans, and they were damn good jeans.
They were thick.
Yeah.
And you could also get them sometimes where they were lined either fully or just at the cuffs. And so you would roll up the cuff and there would be plaid underneath.
That's right.
That was really cool.
I've got a pair of Levi's right like that right now in the closet that I never wear because it never gets cold enough to wear that. I wish I could. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the Charter Club stuff. There was this trend for wearing boat sweaters. It's where it's basically... imagine a sack, and you make a hole to put your head through. It's a boat neck sweater, and there was this trend for boat neck sweaters for a season or two, and I was out on my own at this point, having to make my own way, so I went into the Macy's and bought the Charter Club stuff, and it was great because you could go in there and you would buy linen slacks. Some of them were lined, and they would have the, not buttons, but the slide snap.
Right.
And then you could go and you could get the in-house brand of leather belts. Some of them were reversible. And then, of
Oh,
course,
yeah.
they had the in-house penny loafers.
Yes.
And you could buy them in black and brown and burgundy, and then there was another color for a while that was somewhere in between those.
Was the classic brand of penny loafers, was it Bass? What
Yeah,
was
but they
it?
were so stiff, and I never liked those. But the other ones would have a soft leather, and they were much more comfortable.
You are bringing up things that I haven't thought of in 35 years. That's so funny because I had a pair of those nice goddamn penny loafers, and I actually put pennies in the little slot where it's supposed to go.
I did that too, but those Bass loafers were so hard. I found brands of shoes. Oh, I had Etienne Agner
I forgot about
of
that. Yeah.
the penny loafers, and they had the little
Oh yeah.
A symbol on them.
That's right.
Instead
That's
of
right.
having the penny, it was the strap across it, and it would have the little inverted horseshoe thing that they had on it. And those were so supple you could bend them in half, and they were stitched
Well,
properly. They were so nice. I remember going in, even on a budget, spending $90 for a pair of those loafers, which at the time was a chunk of money.
well, the thing about those penny loafers that I had was it was a real slab of leather on the sole. You don't see that anymore.
It's
you
so
know.
hard to find good shoes. I had a pair of Cole Haan a number of years
I
ago.
forgot about those too.
Oh, yeah. And they were just these slip-ons, and I wore them to death. And they had a relationship with some other brand. So the top was the Cole Haan, but the bottoms were these things that looked like they finally fell apart so I could see them. They had been built up on the inside, and it was all these different layers, almost like a honeycomb, and it made them the most comfortable pair of shoes I had for ages.
I tell you one. Do you remember that place at the mall? Oh God. It wasn't J. Crew. There was a J. Crew. I liked the J. Crew catalogs. I liked all that stuff. But by the time all that got big, I was a working man with no money. But there was a place. God damn it! Was that golden colored corduroy jacket I've got in there? What brand is that?
Brooks Brothers?
No. It wasn't Brooks Brothers. It was. Maybe that was a J. Crew store
I don't know. Sorry.
at the mall. I can't remember now.
Okay.
They had good clothes.
So on the other end of the spectrum were the 80s new wave clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant thin ties and big shoulders and pencil skirts
Well, how about this?
with slits.
Textured fabric jackets. You know, it's like little. You can feel the material because it's got little irregular knobs here and there.
It wasn't a proper tweed. It would just have these chunks of stuff that would stick out. They were terrible. But there was also this fad for doing flannel jackets at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going in and getting the traditional blue and green. And it was so comfortable to wear over blue jeans and a t-shirt. But what was that Chess King?
I was about to get
guys
to that.
went to at the mall?
Our friend Clay worked at Chess King at the mall, and that place, they just were absolutely soaked in the post new wave 80s fashion, where you have just micro thin ties, some of them made out of like faux leather.
Straight out of a Cars video.
Yes, it was Rick Ocasek Cars fashion down to the last detail. Peg leg jean. That's the right term.
Yeah,
Peg jeans and slacks
Yeah.
that, and
lots of slip-on shoes too.
yes.
And you could get it's just
Narrow
like-
lapel jackets.
What's that brand of canvas shoes that are still big Vans? It
Yes.
was it was that kind of quality.
Well, also remember
you could get them
Sperry
in-
topsiders.
You could also get them in plaid, and you could get them polka dot.
Yeah.
You could get them in all these crazy colors and combinations.
Yeah.
I remember going to Belk with a boyfriend at the time, my high school boyfriend, and us doing the Miami Vice fashion too.
Miami
That was a
Vice stuff.
big
Yeah.
thing. And going in linen pants, linen jackets, and that was back when you went in and you got your clothes on, and somebody was there at the dressing room. Would you like that hemmed up? And they would pin it on site, and you'd pay $3 for it to be hemmed. And you'd go back a couple days later, and it was done.
I'll tell you, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say textured fabric jackets, take a
Naughty.
look at the cover of Eric Clapton's August album from 86 or 87. He's wearing a jacket that's got
Knobby texture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a proper
Yeah.
tweed.
But Chess King, their clothes were straight out of Miami Vice. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the thing is, and I'll tell you, this is a personal thing, a story connected with all this. When I was a kid in the 70s, I hated teenagers, and I hated everything that they did, and all of it. I couldn't stand long hair on boys, and even as I craved having my ears covered up because my ears stuck out, and I couldn't stand all that post-hippie fashion shit. I couldn't stand even the clothes the parents wore at the time. The men's ties as wide as your hand, outstretched palm. The jackets with the lapels that are just as big as a roll of toilet paper. All that stuff, I couldn't stand it. So when the 80s hit, and all of a sudden everything turned on a dime to skinny ties, skinny lapels, sharp fashion, I loved it. And it happened right when I became a teenager. Yeah, and was able to dress how I wanted and stuff. And so everything just fit like a key in a lock. It was a wonderful time. Oh my God.
By the way, I like your ears. We were watching something the other day, and I commented on the guy's ears. They were like tiny little ears. It was freakish. It's just one of those things where some people just have small ears and they don't fit their heads. Your ears are right for your head.
What show are you talking about?
Was it on Slow Horses? I don't remember.
Maybe it's something we've watched together lately, only as far as TV shows.
And I was like, his ears are small. Those are gross.
Well,
Kiss those ears.
when I was a kid, and I was so self-conscious about my ears sticking out, and everybody's always making fun of me.
They call you Spock, you poor thing.
Yeah. Well, when I would discover movie stars with big ears, like Clark Gable had big ears, and to a certain extent, Sean Connery had big ears, I was like, oh, what a relief,
Yeah.
It's like now that I'm going bald, you go, well, Sean Connery was bald, so fuck you.
Oh.
Oh my God. And the funny thing is, I've got tons of nice clothes in the closet, and I never get to wear them. I never go anywhere. I don't dress up to go to work. I dress in clothes that are practical.
Remember my dad came over one time and they had a party to go to, and he goes, can I borrow one of your jackets? And he ended up with that, what was it, green velvet or something?
Green velvet?
You had some kind of velvet, crushed velvet jacket.
I do not remember this at all.
Borrowed it. And then he sent pictures later on, and he was so funny in the picture. Yeah, it was some Christmas shindig, winter solstice thing, and it was going to be a big to-do because it was the anniversary celebration, like the 20th year they'd done it. And so they wanted everybody to come over and be in uber festive attire. These are a bunch of old hippies. But
because we went to this private Christian school, we didn't have a prom. Because that involves dancing, which is, basically vertical sex. and they wouldn't let you listen to rock and roll and stuff. So instead, the big occasion was called the awards banquet, and it was they rented a room at the Georgia Center for Continuing Education, like a big banquet room, and they would give out awards like for sports, and they would give academic achievement.
Or for just being a member of a team.
Right. So anyway, I only went twice. I went in
went
my
once.
10th grade year, and I went in my 12th grade year. Now, when I went, and the funny thing is, I went with the same girl both times, and we had been together and then broken up and then gotten back together. Now, when I went in the 10th grade year, I was sort of fat and dumpy and had stupid hair, and I dressed like a fucking moron, and she looked terrible. She was sort of dumpy looking, and she wore this horrible dress, and her hair was all fucked up. Okay, so 11th grade, didn't have a girlfriend. Now, but when I went in my senior year, went with the same girl. Now some changes have happened. I've lost a hell of a lot of weight. I've dyed my hair blonde with peroxide. I was working, so I had the money to buy what I want. I put the damn outfit together. I ordered. I went to a shoe store, like a independent owned shoe store, and I ordered a pair of black and white saddle Oxfords that I put white shoelaces in. I bought a pair of nice slacks. I had this strange shirt that when you buttoned it up, there was a flap that covered up the buttons. And I bought this sort of jacket that had tuxedo tails, but it wasn't an actual tuxedo sports coat. And instead of a tie, I had this bizarre looking slide tie, like a bolo, which was a fashion at the time. And it was a black knitted leather thing with silver ends, and it had this beautiful engraved silver slide, and I just looked fan-fucking-tastic, especially in 1987. And she had her hair done specially. She had baby's breath flowers woven into the hair. She'd lost a lot of weight. She had she was just
Contacts? Did she put contacts in?
no.
at that
She didn't
point?
wear glasses, but I don't know. Maybe she did have contacts. I don't know. She only wore the glasses intermittently. She didn't have to
Oh.
wear them to walk around, and she looked fantastic. And when we showed up, everybody looked, because we were total nerds, right? We liked science fiction and reading and fantasy and all this stuff and Doctor Who and stuff. And when everybody saw us, they're like, "My God, what a difference 2 years makes!" And everybody was complimenting us. "My God, you look fantastic, both of you." And I just felt like, yeah, piss on all you goddamn assholes.
Oh, what was that Molly Ringwald movie where she goes and dresses up for the
16
prom?
Candles.
Is that it? Are
Yeah.
you
No,
sure?
no, no, no. You're Pretty in Pink. Pretty in
Yeah,
Pink.
there
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah. Because everybody's looked down on her because her father's like a mechanic or something.
Yeah.
And she gets dolled up. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the same sort of thing, you know. Yeah. And by that time, I was a senior, and I'd turned around. I'd become very popular, and a lot of the younger kids were like, "Oh yeah, Lance is cool. He's a rebel. He thinks this place sucks."
It did suck, sweetie.
Oh, he got in trouble for listening to rock and roll and all this kind of thing, you know. You and I knew each other in
Yeah.
high school, but we weren't friends, and we never really had a conversation in high school.
Yeah.
But I always thought you were really sharp. I thought, she looks like she hates this place too.
I did. From day one.
And I always thought you dressed cool, and you had this sort of cynical, attitude. I thought you were really cool back then.
Oh, Lord. I didn't see myself blossoming until I got to college.
Yeah.
And the other day I was thinking about, we used to have a local newspaper that would have a scene column. On Sundays they would have a column about who was seen with whom. And I remember the first time I showed up in the column, I guess it was M.A. Barnes that used to do it. And Bonnie was seen with such and such at such and such event. And I was like, cool, I follow him in the paper.
Now, how were you famous enough to be in the paper?
I would go to different charity things and business things.
You were a member of
And,
Now. I know that.
No. This was affiliated when I was working at the bank.
Yeah.
And I started dating one of the board members' sons, and there were charity things, and so my name would be in the paper because I was always out.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not going to say his name because it's a very distinctive name.
Wow. That's
Yeah, he had a house over at
what's the word?
5 Points and was a local property developer.
Yeah, but what's the word? Oh God, for
Society pages.
the society pages. Yeah.
Yeah, there
The
was
local
this,
movers and shakers, you know.
There was a string of gentlemen that I dated, and
Big fish in a small pond, basically, because Athens is back then, what, 50,000 people? You
yeah,
know?
we had about 50,000. And these were guys that played golf and went to the country club.
Old
and-
money for the area. Yeah.
Yeah, like his father owned one of the big houses over in 5 Points.
Mm.
Had a flying staircase and was a famous home in the historic.
In late high school,
Yeah.
early college, I dated one of Bonnie's best friends.
Oh yeah.
And she would talk to me about you. And she'd say, oh, yeah, she's a bad girl. She does drugs. And she,
I went to a line of coke every once in a while. I remember I went to a party she went to, and I went home with a drug dealer that night. And I was like, just looking to have a line of coke, and she's like, I thought I was going to have to call the cops on you. I'm like, I just wanted to party for the night, sweetie. You know? But,
that is so funny.
yeah, I remember because of being both at the university and working downtown at the bank, I got to know everybody on the Athens Townie scene, and I also got to know people at UGA, and I got to know all the old money people, and so I could walk around anywhere downtown. I could go into 40 Watt, and Tony Eubanks was behind the bar. He's like, hey, Bonnie, how are you doing? Go into the Georgia Theater, Kyle Pilgrim. The owner would come up and go, hey, Bonnie, what's up? You know, then I'd go into his wife's store downtown to shop, and she'd come up and start chatting with me. The guys who owned Udi's, the couple who owned that, I'd go in there, knew the people at the grill, the people at Harry's, and it was just like, I miss that. I miss being somebody that everybody knew.
I need to get another cup of tea. This time it'll be tea instead of coffee. But I'm going to keep talking to explain something. And when I get back, I want you to throw in a little bit about what I'm about to say.
Okay.
We need to define for everybody a little bit of a distinction. I'm going to have to squeeze these tea bags out with one hand here. Hold on. In Athens, in the hold on, I'm going to chug this cup of tea. Hold on. Okay. Oh, hold on a second. Okay. In Athens, in the mid to late 80s, we used the term townie to mean something slightly different than how it is used in other parts of the country. At that time period, townie meant sort of like a modern day hippie. It was an artsy person. It was a college-aged kid, roughly speaking, college-aged, who what?
It wasn't just college age. That's the thing. A townie was somebody who maybe had come to Athens to go to college here, or to be involved in the music scene, and ended up also staying. So a townie
yeah.
could be anybody from basically young adults on up to and including some of the old hippies.
Right.
Because Ed Tant and Mike and Eric and all of them would be considered townies also.
Well, when people used to say the word townie at that time, I don't think that they would include people that older. I think maybe 40 would be about the cutoff, maybe. But
There was
if
a
you were
certain look
if you were
that you
tall and
had.
skinny, yeah, you could be thrown into the
Like,
townie scene.
Mark, who owned Go Clothing,
Yeah. Go
definitely-
clothing. Oh yeah.
definitely townie.
Right.
And anybody that would have fucked, those boys would have been townies.
Yeah. But
And,
it wasn't jocks and it wasn't preps. It
That's
was
right.
people who were into the indie music scene. It was people who were into dressing funny.
They oftentimes were waiters. They would work in the record
That's
stores.
right, that's right.
They would be behind the bars. They would work at the music halls. You could go to Bermuda Triangle, which was this fabulous little connection there between Lumpkin and what was it, Clayton.
There was a bar called the Odyssey. Remember that place?
You would go into Georgia Bar, go out the back door, go into this alley, come up in the bar on the other side on Clayton, on Lumpkin Street, and then come around to the corner of Globe. You have the whole Bermuda thing. And there was a period where up at the Globe, you would go upstairs on certain nights, and they would do poetry readings, they would do Celtic music, they would do folk music and stuff. You could walk into any of those bars, and it was just filled with a towny city mix of folks.
We
and
haven't
old
even
hippies.
mentioned the most famous bar slash club in Athens that everybody around the country knows, which is the 40 Watt.
Yeah, that was a couple streets over at that point, and it was huge. It was big. We
Well,
went to
but
the
you know-
Debutante Ball. It was the big fundraiser for AIDS.
But remember, it wasn't where it's at now. It
Well,
used to
it
be
had
over
a
there next to
couple different-
Blimpie.
It had a couple different locations. By the time the Boy Butante Mall it started, it is where it is now. And that's where I got to know Tony Eubanks. He was associated with, I think he was one of the guys that was over at UGA who was teaching math to the football students as a tutor or something. And he was always working the bar over there. And then there were other people around town. There was Mary Beth over at Belgian Copy. And
You know what?
the whole crowd over there.
We have been talking for an hour and 22 minutes.
Again?
Yeah.
We're doing this again? Jesus.
We need to wrap it up because it'll take forever to load.
Yeah.
But say what you're going to say.
Anyway, it was a great place to be at that point in the 80s. And it was alive. And there were so many different groups that were crossing over. Harvey
Look.
Milk was playing, and
I've got one of their albums in my room.
it's you had all these Walt Canal Diary, and REM would show up to do charity benefits. And then I remember going down and watching Mike Mills play in a basement bar. And it was just a great place to live. And part of it was the fact that there were so many different types of people.
Okay.
And we all blended together so beautifully.
Listen, I have a personal life story connection to all this.
What?
How I fit into all this, and how or how I didn't fit into all this.
I don't remember seeing you down.
No, that's what I'm saying. But look, what we're going to do is, when next time we do an episode, it'll be part 2 of this very same conversation.
Okay.
I'm going to write down what I need to say to get started into the part
Okay.
2 when we do this again. But we cannot do another recording this weekend. But maybe, oh God, it's only a 3-day weekend. We can do this Wednesday night because I'll be off work. So we only have to wait a couple of days to get back into this. Okay, perfect. After I stop recording, I'll tell you what I'm going to say,
Okay.
and that way you can help me get back
Remember,
in.
because your brain is broke.
My brain is working at top efficiency.
How about that 9-inch scar across it?
Okay, we are going to finish this later, folks, and we'll have special photographs or something to go along with this episode and the next one. So, all right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.